Hello everyone. Today I'm going to explain 5 basic C3A questions to you. Let's start with the first question. Recently, the questions that have been appearing are all about floating static routes, specifically about floating static routes. Let's take a look at this question. It says that we must configure a regular static route pointing to, this is for IPv6. The configuration for IP reload is the same, meaning it must point to an address, specifically this address. And also, when the current default route fails, it will replace it. In other words, what we call a floating static route. So the correct and safe choice is this one. Option A, you need to point to this location. You need to go to this address, right? No matter where you're going, it can be surprising. Now just use this address and then set an AD value higher than the default static route, right? The correct answer is A. All right, question 2. Move. So for the second question, it says there's a router, and this router, its name is this, and then you replace this router with router 2, right? Replace this router with this number 2. Before making any changes, these two routers can communicate with each other. One is called old DDR. This router also has a path called R2. We need to connect these two routers together and let them synchronize their routing information, right? Now, after I configured OSPF, but the routes haven't been exchanged, so which configurations need to be modified? And this diagram isn't very clear, but where does the problem actually occur? It's with their router IDs. Both of them are using the same router ID. They're using the same router ID because as it's written here, let's take a look. Their router ID, it's 192.168.1.1, right? And here the router ID is also set to 192.168.1.1. So the neighbor relationship can't be established. So we just need to change one of the router IDs, right? That's it. Just change this one. You can also just remove it. After removing it in this IPv4 network, it can automatically use the interface address. So the correct answer is D. Local. All right, question 3. For the third question, it's asking, for the 117.2.16.4.0 network, what is the subnet mask? So for this network's subnet mask, let's take a look. This road is just going to 4.0 here, which is very simple. It's 21 bits, 21 bits. And 1 bit, normally a Class C address is 24 bits, right? Then when you borrow bits to the left, that's using CDR technology. You carry over to the left and you borrow 3 bits to the left. So for this one. So it's 2 and 55. 25 minus 1, then minus 2 minus 4. Right? So 255 minus 1 minus 2 minus 4, isn't that 248? 248. So for this bit, it means there are 8. Originally, there were 8 values, right? These 8 values. 2.1. Then, after these 3 bits are borrowed, you have to write 0 here. These 3 bits have to be set to 0, right? After writing zeros, what do these 8 values represent? Here, this is 2 to the power of 0, which is 1. 2 to the power of 1, which is 2. 2 to the power of 3, 4, and then 8, 16. 32. And here, there's also a 1. 32, 64. 128, and then if we add up these numbers, but we just don't add those 3, add them up and you get 248. So the correct answer is C. Let's look at the correct answer. Choose C. All right, question 4. For question 4, we need to configure a static route on the router to the left of this 24, and then send the traffic destined for the 286 on the right. Hold on a second. That is, send it to this address, which is 172.16. 34, let me see. Where is 34? 172.16, 34.5, which means the traffic destined for this target address must. Which route should be used? Or in other words, which route will it match? This is still a route matching question. It will match this one, 34.0, and then this 128 because it's a 25. A 25. And inside it includes this. That is to say, this one, this is a 25 because it says 25 here. This 128, right? 128. So there are two subnets in total. One subnet is 172.21.34.0 to 15, and the other is 34.128 to 25. So this is a 25, so we match this one. It's this one. This route, right? That was surprising. So it goes through 10.7365.66, which is also this 128 route. This interface. So the correct answer is B. The answer here is B. All right, next episode. Question 5. Finally, it's not a routing match problem. Finally, it's not a routing match problem. Let's take a look at question 5. For this question, the diagram isn't very clear either. The issue here is that the neighbor relationship between the two routers can't be established. These two routers, for example, are 2.1 and 2.2. What is the reason the neighbor relationship can't be established? And here we have something from 2.1, the status of 2.1. And here is a label for 2.2. If this were in an exam setting, this information would be provided. It would be written out very clearly for everyone. So where is the problem? The issue is that their dead intervals are different. That is, their default hello interval and dead interval. This isn't quite the same, right? By default, it's 40 seconds and 40 seconds, but on 2.2, it's been changed. Let's see where it was changed here, right? It was changed to 45 seconds. 45 seconds, so the neighbor relationship can't be established. Normally, you see on 2.1, it's 40 seconds. On 2.2, it's 45 seconds, so they can't establish the relationship. So the correct answer is to choose this one. Choose C. The correct answer is C. Just change the dead interval on R2 to 40 seconds, and that's it. All right, let's look at the correct answer. Select C and submit. To learn Cisco technologies or access Cisco question banks, send me a private message. You can also leave a comment below to keep a record and communicate.